Hello and welcome to Indieviews. I am Connell Suter, host of the show, and today this is episode 8, which is also our second video episode. On Indieviews, we speak to devs about their upcoming or early access titles. Today, we're firmly in the early access category as we're speaking to Antonio Iglesias, founder and developer at Kraken Empire. They're working on their early access title, Toy Tactics. Now, Toy Tactics is a phenomenally cool RTS game with some of the most intuitive controls that I've ever played across the many RTS titles I've tried. The core of Toy Tactics is a level-based campaign mode where you'll be beating armies and solving challenges using your troops and the ones that you can gather throughout the level. You control your armies by drawing formations, and you can then move those formations, rotate them, reset them, and more at will. It's super intuitive, it flows really well, and anybody like myself who's an RTS fan will find it incredibly cool and innovative as a way of controlling your troops. I've been loving it, and I'm still playing it now, in actual fact. Antonio was a fantastic guest, and he gives us some fantastic info too about the game, the background to Kraken Empire, and a little bit more about what we can expect from the rest of Early Access and the full release. And one last quick thing before we jump in, apologies, but you'll notice there's some issues with my microphone throughout the episode. It's electrical crackling. It is fixed for the next episode, but apologies, it may be a little bit annoying at certain parts. Although Antonio, obviously the important one here, sounds fantastic on it, so no problems there. It was really, really great to speak to Antonio. I'm incredibly humbled he was on the show. So let's get to the interview. Magic. So I am joined today by Antonio Iglesias, co-founder of Kraken Empire. How's it going, Antonio?
Hi, thank you so much. Very well. We're just releasing new updates and new features for the game all the time, and it's kind of fun.
Oh, amazing. And yeah, no, congratulations on the Pirates update. It's awesome.
Thank you so much.
So to get us kind of into the idea of Toy Tactics and see where it came from, could you give us a little bit of background on yourself, Kraken Empire, and then kind of what led to Toy Tactics?
Oh, yeah. I'm an informatic engineer, so me and my partner were studying together from 25 years ago. So we funded a virtual studio, that kind of fake studio while studying, that was called Kraken Studios, and we kept the logo. The current logo is not the same that we started with, but we kept the logo for the studio 10 years later. So we went to Madrid, we worked in a couple of strategy games, and we founded our own studio here in our town city in Zaragoza in Spain. That's just between Madrid and Barcelona. And we funded the studio. We created a shoot 'em up, 3D shoot 'em up, kind of 6 degrees of freedom that was called Chromaya, in a kind of Tron aesthetics. It was kind of a strange game, but it was very fun and very interesting because it was completely based on physics. So you could control your ship applying forces, and that was kind of interesting. You can try it. It's on Steam too. And then we jumped into this game in Toy Tactics. So we are programmers. The first game we created just the two of us alone. So we did everything in the game. But now we have artists, and that's something you're going to notice.
No doubt. I imagine that makes it a lot easier on the dev side as well. That's awesome. And I commend you guys not to, nothing against any other indies, but there's a bit of a joke that I used to have with some friends about how you can kind of predict the game studios always will be studios and things like this. So away from the name studios is a really great shout. I love the name Kraken Empire. I think it's awesome.
It took us months to choose a name, but yeah,
no doubt.
It's not bad.
Totally, yeah, it's a big decision. I totally get it. And yeah, it's really cool that you're in Zaragoza. I think, is there many other devs there? Or?
There are very few devs here. In Spain, we have like 500 studios right now working developing video games, and here in Zaragoza, we have like 5, something like that. So we are just a few. Even when Zaragoza is the fourth biggest city in Spain.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize. But that's really cool though that you guys moved there to do it because I think a lot of countries have, I would say, a problem with a lot of game studios all being in one place, and anybody who doesn't live there has no opportunities or has to start from making their own studio or making a game completely themselves. So I think I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah, we try to create some industry here in Spain and in Zaragoza here to uh, in our homes. And we were when we were going to grow, the the pandemic just started. So we started working online with everyone. So now we're just online, everyone. So we just working from home.
Oh,
So it's
amazing.
so now it's kind of we're based in Zaragoza, but we have people working from Madrid, Barcelona, Bilbao, even from Peru.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we're online now. It's we're not going to be able to change that anymore.
No, totally. That's great to hear. I think as a lot of indies, I feel like they'd stick with online, whereas bigger studios were trying their back to studio things, and even people who had been working remotely being told, "No, you now have to come in." So that's really cool. I love that, and definitely, hey, I'm in Scotland. You know, it's not too far, at least the same time zone, or close enough.
I was in Scotland last 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah,
How come? Just hanging out?
yeah, I was in Edinburgh.
Oh,
Edinburgh.
amazing, man! Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. We could have done an in-person interview.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have no idea where you was based.
Oh, fantastic! That's awesome, man. Oh, I'm glad you came over. This is it now. I'll get too distracted asking about what you were up to in Edinburgh and how you enjoyed it and stuff. But to focus on Toy Tactics, because I can't be about me and my interests completely. So, Toy Tactics is an RTS title, and to give people an idea of what within the RTS genre, because that can mean Age of Empires and these kind of classic ones. It's
Mhm.
would compare it to the Total War series in the battles and the skirmishing of it. Um, it's super cool, and it's something I love these kind of games, and think that there's not been enough innovation in that space. Largely because I think they're quite technical games, and trying to change it's like trying to change war is quite a big thing to do. So, what made you want to make a game in this kind of strategy?
I'm a strategy player too, so I played everything from the beginning. I'm a chess player too, so I love strategy games, strategy tactics, and everything. I love everything. So I, as much as I love strategy games, I can't find a really good strategy game on PC because they are all concentrating in this kind of domination game. For example, the Command and Conquer saga is kind of you build a base, you get resources, or StarCraft or anything. You build resources, you get a big enough army, you survive different waves, and then you crush the enemy and you just move around and destroy everything with a big enough army. That's not very strategic or very tactical. It's just surviving with some strategic decisions and some tactical decisions here and there, but not in the long term. So I've always wanted to create a very deep strategy game. It's not toy tactics. Toy tactics is just the tactical part. So we just concentrated in the small formations and tactics and I don't know, maneuvers, this
Mhm.
kind of thing. That's going to be short enough, and you don't have to plan too large in time. So just very uh, short term this tactics. So that's our idea for this game. So I played all of them. I love the Command and Conquer saga anyway, and I love the Total War saga. But I didn't like the way you control your units. I didn't like the way you manage your armies, your formations, the way you give orders to your units. So, for example, the Supreme Commander series is awesome, and I love the idea to control different units and different sizes of units, and that's awesome. But at the end, it's kind of chaotic when they enter battle. You can't control the units separately; they go crazy, and at the end, you lose control. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to make a very simple control, uh, very easy to get into. You don't have to make a 2-hour tutorial to understand two tactics. You can learn in 5 minutes. And the idea was to separate the different units in a very easy way. In our ways, just drawing lines. So you say, okay, I want infantry here. You draw the line, and the archers behind. So you draw the line for the archers, and just I don't know, a triangle for the cavalry on the flank. So you set the units very easily. You move them very easily. You can break formations and split into extremely easily too, because you just draw two lines. So it was very natural for us to create this kind of strategic maneuvers and tactics in a very easy way, moving away from the typical RTS controls and interface. That's kind of the standard in the genre. But we wanted to do something different and control units in a different way that probably you haven't seen anywhere. So it's a very unique way, but we think it's very useful, especially for creating tactical maneuvers, so that you can surround the enemy, you can deceive, you can I don't know, move your archers ahead and then retreat behind the infantry. You can make some tactical maneuvers that probably you haven't been able to do it in any other game before.
Yeah, that's a fantastic description of the game, as well as an interesting look into why you wanted to make it. And everything I've played of it, it's just, yeah, it's so true. Everything you said is as a Total War player, it absolutely hits the button in terms of it's the stripping down of taking the mass out of Total War and making it about the tactics, as you say, and not this kind of adding more and more on, or just having huge battles. By removing that, it does make it feel far more tactical. And we'll talk a little bit more later on about the formation mechanics and how innovative they are and how interesting. But even in the time I've played with it, I've employed real life formation tactics into that game. I've arranging wedge formations for cavalry or line columns for advancing on archers and things like this. And it manages to capture all that real life tactics and historical knowledge you might have and make it usable. And as you say, but making it incredibly easy to jump into. And again, like Total War is a perfect example of an amazing game that you cannot jump into for 5 minutes and play a level. And if you want to play one skirmish battle, you get perhaps a slightly unfulfilling experience in some ways. And yet, complete Toy Tactics is the antithesis to that. It is completely satisfying. You can jump in it very quickly, and just as you say, learning in 5 minutes for an RTS strategy game is an incredible thing to be able to say. And from a player's perspective, I corroborate that completely. It's awesome.
Thank you.
And I love the look of the game as well. It's got such a fun and enjoyable aesthetic, which I don't know if Subutio is popular anywhere outside of the UK, but it really reminded me of Subutio, which for any listeners who haven't heard of it, which I'm imagining any American listeners would say, what on earth is Subutio? It was a football board game with wobbly players that you could like flick around, and they were able to move like this in a similar style. So what was it about that kind of toy-like style that you wanted to apply?
Yeah, it was kind of an accident and a coincidence, but at the end, it all came together. We started with this kind of stick soldiers. So my idea as programmers, we wanted to do some kind of very simple units that you could have, 1,000 units in each army. So you could face 1,000 against 1,000, and that will work. It works right now. So it's quite an achievement, in fact. But the idea was, okay, we're going to make very simple units. So we're going to use this kind of stick figures and something very simple that we're not going to use animations. We're going to just animate the hands. So we're going to, the kind of Rayman, use the shield, the sword with the hand, the head, and the body. So we're going to use this kind of very simple idea and to differentiate between Roman, Greek, Egyptian, or anything. We're going to use the helmet, the shield, and the sword. And that's going to be everything you have. So it was this kind of idea, very simple units that come to and we want to apply physics because that's kind of our expertise. We want to apply physics everywhere. We find it very fun and interesting. So we use this physics with these units, and we found that usually in video games we use this kind of capsule collider to represent a human unit because it's kind of easy to step up and down with using these kind of capsules. So it was kind of okay. Well, how do we make this physics enjoyable with battle and this kind of thing? So we thought of Subbuteo. Subbuteo was one of our
Awesome.
references. Yeah, clearly, and this kind of punching balls, this kind of boxing trainers that you can punch,
Oh,
and
totally.
they tumble around, and so that was another reference for us. So it kind of okay, why don't we add this physics into the game in a playful way, so that the units are going to be this kind of roly-poly toys that are going to receive damage and attacks and explosions and everything. They're going to fly around and use this kind of ball physics, so that they're going to be funny to watch too. So you can play the game, plan your strategies and set your formations, and then enjoy the result. So it was very easy to that point. Then the artists came in, and they saw our awful art. They changed everything. They make the soldiers, instead of these kind of stick figures, they made the units we have for now, the units I have behind. These full soldiers with shield and sword and helmet and chest and everything. They don't have arms or legs. In fact, my lead artist wanted to kill me when I set the restrictions, that they have no arms, they have no legs, they have no feet. They they only have this body and sword, shield, and head. And it was kind of I can't give them expressivity with so many limitations. You can do it. So I was confident he would find a way, and he did. He did. He's awesome. So he created this kind of a very beautiful, unique, and very. They have a lot of personality. The units. So it kind of works. So we ended in this kind of toys, simple units, but detailed in the artistic style. So it kind of works because it's kind of a mix between the simplicity of we as programmers and the complexity of the art they wanted to add into the game.
I love that. I love that. That's the view. It's very generous of you as a programmer to say it's like I just want to do things simply. But I totally get it. That's lovely. That's awesome. And it does. It's you said it there. They have such personality and so much character to them, and it really is like you're so right that it doesn't need much to make them fun. The physics definitely adds to it, but it also then works as well as what we're saying with the game and how it's meant to be simple to get into. Is it's one of those where you can look at a unit and instantly know what that unit is without any UI. You know where they're going to be useful and what you can do with them, and that's really important for strategy games. And again, not to rag on Total War, but with additional complexity, you just see people complaining more about problems where some of the more advanced systems leading to units interacting in strange ways and things like that, and unpredictably. Whereas this doesn't have that unpredictability, and I guess part of it is almost the aesthetic as well. You always know what's going on. It's just really cool.
Yeah, and the toy aesthetic let us make, for example, the big units really big. So we have this infantry that are really small, and we have the kings that are kind of triple the size. So you're confident that they are going to be stronger. They're going to receive more damage. So it's kind of intuitive. You don't need to learn too much about the units. It happens to me in Total War. The Warhammer Total War, that you have to learn a lot about which kind of unit you have, the kind of armor they have, the kind of weapons. So it's kind of paper, rock, scissors. You have to match, okay, this unit is very good against this one. So it's kind of, you need to know a lot before you plan the strategy. And with toy tactics, it's very simple because it's kind of infantry, archers, big units, cavalry. So it's very intuitive. Then we have specific units, for example, the cavalry in the samurai armies, archer cavalry. So it's going to be different in the way to use it. You can charge with the cavalry, even if there are archers, but that's not the best idea unless you're charging against the small units or something like that. So you have to decide, and you have to control units in the right way. But if you zoom in, you're going to see the archers, you're going to see the bows, the swords, the axes. So you know what unit is that and how it's going to behave.
That's so cool. I love that. And I love how the things like archer horsemen could combine with the formation drawing system, and immediately you can think of ideas of like, oh well, traditional tactics of circling and things like this, and using flanking and stuff. That's so cool. And yeah, absolutely, I agree with everything you said, even though of course I do because it's your game. Uh, and I guess differently from Warhammer Total War that we just mentioned, but a lot of these kind of classic Total War games and other strategy games, they do focus on very specific time periods. And quite often they draw quite a hard line, unlike some recent Total War games, but they do draw a hard line between mythology and history. And you guys have got a mix. I mean, the second you start the demo, you're introduced to Erebus and the Romans, and then the Draugr are attacking them. And immediately, obviously, you think of things like Skyrim and stuff. You're like, wow, this is a lot meeting in the middle. And as well, if people should, there's a lot of fun to the game as well. It's something, even in just the naming of stuff in the UI, it's a very funny game with spells like Pompeii Pizza coming up, which laughing out loud at when I first saw. So, like, I guess with that much of a range of stuff to include, how do you like focus down on what historical and mythological aspects to include, which time periods and stuff?
Yeah, as we were introducing a new way to control units, we wanted to show that it was a good way to control units in any age of war that you can think of. So the best idea we will have of that was to, the original plan with the stick soldiers was to create kind of 15 armies, something like that. Right. So we wanted to show every army in the history of humanity, so you could play with anything and anytime. But in the progress, the armies, the units, the spells, and everything got more complicated. We got a more complex game with much more depth. So we had to discard a lot of factions in the way. So we just kept the main ones that we think are going to add something into the game. We would love to add, I don't know, Egyptians, Aztecs, barbarians, it's kind of Vikings, something like that. The West, World War II. And we were to add everything into the game, but we have no time and no resources. So that's going to be for Toy Tactics 2, I guess. We kept the main ones. So the main ones were the first one in the chronologically will be the skeletons, this kind of undead unit, the Draugr, that are this kind of archaic soldiers from the beginning of times, where they have dinosaurs, you have the T-Rex, you have the cavalry is a velociraptor. So you have this kind of crazy army, again, using necromancy and corruption. And it's kind of an archaic army to use everything and play with. Then we have the next will be the Roman Empire. So that's very, we all know about the Romans, and we will know which kind of units they have and how to use them. So it's very easy for everyone to enter the Romans. So that's why they are this kind of tutorial. So you learn how to play with the Roman. They are the balanced units. They have very good balance between, let's say, defense and attack. Their spells are based on fire and building things. So it's easy to understand what to do and how it's going to work. You don't need to understand many more things than that. And then we go into the medieval, very important age, into the battles and everything. So we added the medieval army with this kind of Arthuric legends. And so we use this kind of Arthur, with this kind of a witch, kind of Merlin. We always have a king and a queen. And sometimes they are melee or long range units, and it doesn't depend if they are male or female. So we change roles all the time, so you can play around with one and the other. And the idea with the medieval army was to use magic and unicorns and dragons and eyes. So they use this kind of frozen enemies and this kind of magic to combine your kings with your units to give them different abilities. It's kind of complex, so that's why it's the second army you're going to try. The third one is the samurai army, the Kyokai, and that's very interesting because we changed the way to play, and it's kind of stealth. gameplay. So you can hide in the fog, and then you can play stealthy. So you can get an army from behind. You can destroy the archers behind before the army notices it. So you can play kind of strategically, but kind of stealthy, going from one way to another, and unlocking things or destroying things or breaking bridges, or I don't know. So it's kind of a different way to play, but still you're still drawing. So you draw formation, you move your drawings, and it's going to be the same, but with a different gameplay. And then you're going to find the pirates that we have just released. The idea with the pirates, it was going to be the Napoleonic army, because it's kind of a very interesting era in Europe, with the gunpowder and that new way to battle, that kind of long range battle. That was the Napoleonic era here in Europe. But we didn't want to stay so much Eurocentric, because we already have the Italian with the Roman, we already have the English with the medieval. We didn't want to go to France with another army, so we went to the Caribbean, and we used the pirates for that. They have a gunpowder, and they're much more playful in this kind of toy-like units. It's kind of fun to see them. The cavalry is a turtle, it's a giant turtle, and they use brew, so they have interesting spells too. They can convert into ghosts, so they are in material for a short period of time. So you can, I don't know, go through buildings or fortresses or anything. So it gives you another, I don't know, another way to play, another way to find new tactics against the enemy. And then the last campaign that's not released and will be released soon, but you can imagine it's going to be the Draugr. That's going to let you revive the corpses from the dead and get a new army from the dead units in the battlefield. That's going to be fun too.
That's so cool. Oh, I love that. It's such, I love how diverse it is awesome. And I think you made the right choice, because there's nothing less playful in my head than like Waterloo and Napoleonic Wars. Something about, I'm like, how do you convert that to a toy that doesn't just look like colonial troops as well? So awesome. And Pirates is such a fun one. You're certainly right. It fits so well with the toy aesthetic. That's really cool. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. And yeah, I think we're probably right to come down from 15, because the amount of work that must go into each one. I mean,
yeah, right now that we have the units, we have the spells and the relics that add new abilities into each kind of unit. So we have a lot of things, and using 15 armies was kind of crazy. It was a good idea when you have units and nothing else. So you could try different strategies, and I don't know, the Indian army could have elephants with archers and very slow long-range units that could make interesting tactics too, but we will have to wait for another expansion or something.
Absolutely. Oh, well, I'm excited for it. And yeah, one of the things we talked about, you've talked about, mentioned it throughout. I'm sure eagle-eared listeners will have heard it. It's talking about the formations and drawing formations. And it is, it's one of those things that really, when you see it, if you've played games in this genre, you see it and you go like, whoa, oh, that's totally new. I've never seen anybody trying something like that. And your mind races with the possibilities it provides. I mean, even what you're saying there about the different armies and the different styles and how it works so well with each of them. It is a fantastic system, and it's so intuitive in a way that no strategy game I've ever played has been able to fashion. So where did that initial idea for painting formations come from? And like, how do you, when you're looking at how players interact with the game, looking at streamers, how do you feel that formation system changes how they play this compared with more traditional strategy and RTS titles?
The original idea came from books. I love study games, I said from the beginning, and I wanted to play in a different way, but I didn't know how. So I tried to find a reference about how to play in a different way that was not the typical square selection with left click and right click to give an order. So I was one day in a library taking a look at some books. They are called I don't know how is that called in English. uh, uh,
Run into a translation problem.
yeah, I don't know how's going to be called in English. Something like mm, battle tactics from different ages. So battle tactics from the Roman, battle tactics from ancient times, battle tactics from the colonial times. So there's a
Totally.
collection of books, and these books were kind of a battle in a battlefield. So it was a kind of drawing for each battle. So
Oh,
they
cool.
were showing historical battles, and that there was a kind of illustration with the battlefield, and then some formations drawn in the illustration. This kind of there is the this was, I don't know, Alexander the Great placed his infantry in this position, so you could see the infantry, and then there were some arrows telling the direction of the maneuvers of this infantry, the cavalry. So the cavalry went to the right, and then the defender went to the right with his cavalry too, and then the infantry advanced and they fought in the middle. So it was a small drawing telling the battle in just one illustration, and that was kind of this is a very interesting way to see a battle. I could see that in a video game too. Why can't I play this really in the same way? So the first idea, using this reference, was to draw the movements of the formations. So the original idea was to have a formation like in Total War, and then drawing the line that the formation is going to follow. And that was very interesting, but it didn't work so well because choosing the way the formation moves is not so important, because at the end the point of collision with another formation, the way they collide, the way units are going to crush each other and attack and try to find position to attack the enemy, are much more important than the movement of the formation. So I found that the opposite way that Total War does it, because in Total War you have these two formations together, they crash, and the front lines are going to attack each other, and the backwards lines are going to just wait around, looking at the ceiling or something, waiting for the time to attack, and that's kind of do something. You're just
Totally.
waiting around. So I wanted the units to push and try to get into battle and try to attack above the heads of the front line or something, or do something. So it's kind of yeah, but I need to choose the shape of the formation to do that. So I need to, if I'm going to attack a small formation, maybe I want to surround the formation. I want to make this kind of a concave shape so I can surround the formation. So the drawing that was about drawing the movements change into okay, drawing the formations themselves and then drag the formations to move them. At the beginning, there were even waypoints, so you could still set the movement direction and everything, but
Mm.
it made no sense very soon because it was small maps, not so many units, and you were more like controlling the shapes of the formations and the way to attack and the position, the situation, where to place the archers, where to place the cavalry, how to charge, what direction. So it came together very fast and very easily, but it took a long time to decide what was going to how it was going to work. What was the main focus of the strategy? Why moving or drawing, or what we should draw or move? How to split a formation in two? We started with this kind of splitting a drawing by drawing in the middle. So
Right, totally.
at
Ah,
the end, we're this kind of creating of a drawing application to control the units, and it's kind of we don't want to do that either. We just want to control the units and the formations. So we ended in what you have seen.
oh, amazing. And it's so interesting hearing that it could have been movement. And I totally agree that it's like what movements, and then you can see when it becomes important, but you're right, it's almost like bigger battles where you're trying to avoid encountering the enemy too early and things like this. Um, but that's so fascinating to hear. And it really is. It manages to emulate real tactics far better than games that are trying to emulate real tactics. Like I know we going back to Total War again, but Total War is just a good example of if you watch and to even get an idea of those kind of drawings. There's a lot of channels on YouTube now that do kind of, they talk about ancient battles and they'll do these breakdowns of what happened, and they follow a similar style with these cubes of units and showing the movement. And one of the things that you realize is that not just that games like Total War have so much going on that it's almost impossible for you to actually coordinate two sides of an army at the same time, but the rigidity of the movement means you can't react like humans do, and that you can flow units, you can have people move. And in Toy Tactics, from playing it, the fact that you can do actually much more complex formations and I guess you would just call it an overall tactic throughout the battle because of how intuitive that system is, like being able to envelop an army by, as you say, like instead of having your guys 3 deep kind of, and you've got that front line trying to pull them in, spreading your line out super thin all the way around the back, and your guys very naturally following it, going right to it. It's intuitive, but also it's so smooth in the way it works. It works exactly how you expect it to. It's just fascinating, and it really is like it's incredibly innovative. And I love that it came from a drawing and like just actually battle tactics. That's cool. It wasn't some other game inspiration. That's awesome.
Yeah, sometimes the inspiration comes from anywhere. So sometimes it comes from books, sometimes from older video games, from tabletop games, or I don't know. It comes from anywhere. So at the end you have this kind of collection of ideas that you try to put together, and you just need to iterate and try what's going to work better. It took us a long time to have the first working version of this, because there are a lot of technical challenges and a lot of difficulties to make this work in the right way. And as it is the first time, we had to invent everything from scratch because there were no references to copy from, and that was kind of hard. But at the end, it works. I think it's pretty interesting. You asked before about the streamers, but I think they get it very fast. But if you are very used to some strategy game, maybe you are going to struggle a bit at the beginning with the different controls. That's interesting to see.
The first time I played it, you mentioned earlier on, I was clicking to drag to select all. I was like, where's the square? I thought this was a strategy game. And then you start dragging the formations and you're like, oh, actually, this is easier and more like you can react much more quickly than those kind of splitting it. And then, as you were saying again, with the splitting your units, I actually was really impressed with when I was approaching a unit and it came up and said, you can draw 2 lines for this unit and they will go on either side of them. And I'm like, wow, that's something that, again, like in Total War is a struggle. If you want to like use one unit to attack from 2 sides, you basically can't unless you're doing weird merge things, and there is options, but it's very kind of clunky and fiddly. And in this, it takes something that is other games have added systems and systems to try and emulate, and you managed to do it by going, no, you just draw here and here, and there you go. It's sorted. It's very when things like with VR and the way that VR changes the way you interact with games and it makes it much more natural. I feel Toy Tactics does that for the strategy genre. It's so natural. It's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. We try to, but you can draw these 2 concave formations and that just rotate and drag and surround an enemy very easily. So it's kind of very natural when you get it in the beginning, but you have to forget what you know about some RTSs sometimes. Totally. And you have to start from scratch and say, okay, what do you have for me? Okay, show me.
For sure.
And because if you want why can't I select the formations and give them an order? And exactly. You have to forget and then start from scratch and say, okay, how do I do it?
Totally. That's awesome. Yeah, no, it is, and it works super well. It really does. So I talk a little bit about multiplayer because it's a really exciting prospect. What you said that there will be multiplayer, but what will that look like? And will it be? Are we talking campaigns? Are we talking a skirmish mode? How does that look?
The current idea is for just a very small battle, just 1 versus 1. Just to see who is better in the battlefield, and that's all. We would like to add a cooperative mode, just for battles, just for this kind of skirmish mode, surviving different incoming waves and increasing the amount of units you have. But I don't know if that's going to be possible. So for now, we are just working with this kind of 1 versus 1, so that you can beat your enemies with your friends in the battlefield and see
Both.
who is a better strategist. And yeah, for now, that's going to be fun enough, I guess. We don't want to get this campaign cooperative or something like that, because I don't think that makes so much sense. The campaign is much more to test the game, the capacities of this drawing mode, to play with the new way to play, because the idea is to show how this drawing interface can do anything. We are controlling a strategy game or this kind of formations and everything, but you could play a football game using these drawing formations too, and it would be very interesting to try to. So we're playing with this concept of use the drawing for anything. You use the drawing to control your formations, to draw the formations, to move the formations, to cast spells. So you can build a wall with the spell. You can invoke asteroids falling in the battlefield. You can invoke a fire tornado, Sharknado. You can do anything with just drawing. So it's kind of a test that you can do anything. You can enjoy a lot, and that physics work in RTS games too. So we play around with that. The multiplayer is just we want you to try different armies and try to battle another. For example, choose the Roman and battle against a medieval army and see what's going to work best. Would you prefer to spend your budget in cavalry or infantry or spells, or what are you going to base your army in? And that's going to depend, depending on the different formations you have, or the different units you have bought, and the enemy and what they have done. You have to select the strategy and try to beat them. So I think that's going to be fun enough.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, it's like I'm really excited to play against my brother. We're both big strategy Total War fiends, and we'll definitely be doing it. And actually, do you know, it's something that I have to admit I hadn't even thought of until right now. But it's actually a really interesting aspect of that is that just to touch again for a moment on the drawing formations concept and this one-on-one multiplayer. So because my brother has cerebral palsy, so he only has full use of one hand. And games like Total War, I mean, Total War is not too bad for it, but there's a lot of games that are very difficult to play with one hand. And even most strategy games are asking you to do quite a lot just on the mouse. So actually, the intuitiveness of the drawing formations is so perfect for that. It means that me and my brother can play on a completely level playing field, which is difficult because it means that I no longer have an advantage. And well, I'll have to actually just beat him on tactics, which isn't likely. But yeah, it's a really cool aspect of it. It really does make actually strategy games a lot more accessible, not just as we're saying in terms of the difficulty and intuitiveness, but actually simplifying the controls down as well to let everybody play. It's really awesome.
Yeah, we wanted the game to be able to, for everyone to play, and in every possible platform. So the idea was to play in consoles too. So we have adapted the controls to dual stick analog too, and that works. And we added an automatic camera. So if you are a casual gamer, maybe you don't want to have the control of the camera. So you just want to control your formations and move around. So we are giving you all the facilities to do everything with the less interface we can. And for example, in PC, you can do everything with the mouse. So you can only use the right hand or the left hand and do everything. You can draw and drag some different formations together. You can rotate with the mouse too. You can rotate the camera with the formations. So you can do anything just using the mouse. So we wanted to make the game accessible. For example, for blind color people, colorblind.
Colorblind, yeah.
So we added this ability to change the color of your army and the enemy army.
Oh, awesome.
Because some people are not able to see the difference between, I don't know, red and green or blue and yellow. So you can select the colors you can see better. You can differentiate more, and you can play, I don't know, yellow against black or magenta against blue. So that's going to work with your eyes too, hopefully.
Oh, that's awesome.
We had a tester that was colorblind.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Yeah, that helped us a lot to find a way to make it accessible for colorblind people.
No, that's such a cool thing to hear because totally, I think, I mean, especially colorblindness often gets forgotten. And I think a lot of people, if you don't have colorblindness, you don't think about those things. And there's so many games out there, classics like Bejeweled and stuff like this, that you think for so long, no one ever considered that anybody couldn't play that.
Yeah, it's 8% of male players, so
Totally.
it's a lot for people.
That's crazy. And also actually having someone on the team who has it and able to test with it, like, that's such a wonderful thing because a lot of accessibility stuff's almost theoretical, and it never the devs never see or meet somebody that actually has to use it. So
Yeah, sometimes it's very difficult because even with colorblind people, there are a lot of different ways to see colors and everything. So it's very difficult to know if everyone is going to be able to enjoy the game and use colors that they can differentiate. But we have tried with different. I have friends with different levels of color blindness, and it seems to work. So
awesome. That's great, and it has the added bonus that people can just recolor them to be like their favorite football team versus their least favorite football team, and have the Rangers, Celtic, Roman versus medieval. Oh, amazing. One of the things we've touched on as well is about physics, and you've talked about building physics in and in your previous games as well. So what is it about physics that you love so much that you love including? And did Toy Tactics was it always like we need to have physics in here as some kind of driver?
Yeah, I love physics. It's I think that's my fault. I love physics so much. I love to see the interaction of digital things using physics because I think that gives credibility to the world you have in front. So it's kind of you don't believe something if it's happening something that you don't expect, but physics is kind of predictable. So it's kind of, okay, I can use an explosion here, and I guess this unit is going to fly around and it's going to fall, I don't know, into this pit or cliff or something, is going to die. So you can predict things just using physics. You can push units, and you can this what I was saying before. You can get the second line of your formation to push the front line and try to attack from above. So that's going to be it's going to add into the strategy, and it's going to allow, for example, the cavalry charges to be more realistic, and you can charge against a formation, break the formation, and send units flying around, or you can charge against a big unit and push the unit forward and push a pit or push into, I don't know, anything. So it's kind of giving this kind of credibility to the world that you're going to believe the units are there, and that what you're doing is affecting the gameplay and the units, and they're really there. So it's kind of, I feel like physics is it's adding a lot into the game, into the strategy, and into the credibility of the things happening. And of course, it's going to be a lot of fun. And you see units flying around. It's kind of Asterix and Obelix. When units die, they fly around, and and they die and fly, and it's kind of fun to see. So everything comes together again.
Absolutely.
and it works. In our previous game, Gramaya, it was something I was convinced of. I thought that using forces and physics was going to make your controls feel more natural, more fluent, but it was just intuition, and it worked. If you try the game, you're going to find the best part of the game is flying around, because as you have a ship and you apply forces, you apply you have propellers you have 16 propellers in the ship, so you apply forces behind to move forward, you apply cross forces to rotate around. So it's all applying forces. So you're going to see, if you play the game, that the movement of the ship is kind of fluent. It's much more fluent than any other ship you have tried before, and it's because of physics. So it's kind of, I've tried this a lot of times, and I find it adds a lot into the gameplay. It creates a lot of problems.
Oh, no doubt.
And it's kind of crazy sometimes. Units falling through the ground, units flying around and getting away from the map. You have to recover them or kill them or something. So physics add a lot of problems, but they're a lot of fun, and I love the gameplay. It just completes everything. So it's kind of, It's kind of you do things and physics react, and they show you a coherent result. So it's kind of a logical way to play and to do it.
Totally, and I love how the physics works in it, because like what you're saying, I think you've just outlined the two really like interesting aspects that are completely opposite to each other, which is that, as you say, much of battles is like the physics of this many people running into this many people and how that moves and stuff. And a lot of strategy games are quite static, so they don't have that kind of like a pushback. It's really, you're either being routed or you're going to be standing there fighting. So I love that aspect of it that makes it feel more situationally important and more like real battles. But then also it works so well with the toy-like aesthetic, like what you're saying with the units flying out. It's like when you're a kid and you're fighting your like wrestlers or your characters, and you're going like and then one of them goes, and then you're bringing others in. And so I love how it really does complete it, and it gives so much personality, like you're saying, as well, to the characters on top of the animation and everything. It does make them feel alive, and yeah, the intuitiveness of understanding how physics works in our life to theirs just makes it more understandable, and again, more like you're playing around with toys as a kid. Awesome.
There was a comment in Reddit that was like, this is exactly how I imagined battles to happen in my playground when I was a child.
That's awesome.
And it was, it's exactly that. There was a bug a year ago, something like that, when we lost physics for a while. So there were all the game was working properly, but we didn't have this kind of units flying around and pushing and everything. So everything broke. I don't know why. I don't remember, but it was a bug. So units were kind of going close to each other, and then attack, and die. And it was kind of, oh, that's so boring. But that's how units work in most RTS games.
Totally.
So it was very, very interesting to remove from the game, see it working, and say, okay, this is boring. It's the same game, and it's not working again. So we understand that we understood that we needed physics to work to make the game fun enough, because otherwise it was kind of empty.
Totally. Yeah, it's fun. It's I think it's sort of easy to miss how it adds to the personality of a game. It's not just the gameplay or how the gameplay influences that like ephemeral kind of aesthetic. That's just, is it fun or is it serious, or as you say, like just very direct. It's so cool. And I guess to move on to about inspirations again, I'd heard another interview you'd done. You talked about, they were asking about like what games had inspired you and stuff, and I was sitting there screaming at the screen going, Total War, how have you not heard of Total War? But you said chess, and I was like, oh, totally. And I really love that. Again, one of those things that once you hear it, you're like, oh, I can totally see why, as well, why you would take that as your inspiration for strategy, of course. But there's some obvious elements like the king and queen that you mentioned about how that goes into chess, but like some of the less obvious elements, how else do you think like chess inspired the game, and maybe the formation design as well?
It's interesting because there are so many things that we got from chess. I wanted to start with something like that, and I always have chess as an inspiration because chess is a very complex game. Maybe the more complex I know now. There is another game that's called Go.
Totally. That's the AI one they always do, don't they?
Yeah. It was very difficult for AI, but that's because the board is so big. It's kind of the chess board is 8x8, so it's 64 squares, and the Go board is kind of 19x19.
Oh wow!
So it's kind of 361 squares. So it's kind of a very big space to search for AI. But I like very much chess because it's the perfect combination of tactics and strategy. It's the perfect combination of long-term plans and short-term maneuvers. So it's very difficult to understand if you don't play a lot of chess, okay? But I promise it's in there. So I always wanted to create this kind of gameplay in a video game. It's very difficult, okay? Because the chess works because it's a turn-based game. There is no randomness. So you can plan ahead, and you can plan 10 or 20 movements. I can't. Okay, just chess masters can, but usual players can get ahead, I don't know, 6, 8 movements. So it's very interesting, but you can plan ahead a lot, and you know everything that's going to happen in the middle. Sometimes you miss something and you lose, so that happens. But it's very interesting because you have a lot of control on the battle. That's the chess game. So I wanted to do something like that in a video game, so that you have control in the short term and in the long term. The long term in this game is very small, so the long term will be you have the maps are kind of 500 meters by 500 meters, so that's the map, and the long term is kind of okay. What's in the map? I have to kill these units. I have to attack this fortress. There is a chest here. There is a secondary objective here. Okay. What do I do? Okay, first I'm going to control this tower in the middle. So this is the long-term tactics. Okay, I'm going to attack this first, attack this second, then I go for the final objective. I'm going to forget the chest because it seems it's protected by a dragon that's going to hurt me. Maybe with the spells I'm going to do something. So you plan ahead and you try to estimate what's going to happen from the beginning to the end. So that's the long-term. This is the strategy of your battle. And then is the tactics. Okay, how do I have to attack this dragon? Okay, how? I'm going to surround with the infantry, and then I'm going to place the archers behind. I'm going to damage the dragon, and then he's going to come. I'm going to stop him with my infantry. And if things go bad, I'm going to get my king in the middle. So I'm going to get some of the damage of the dragon just in the king. So I'm not going to lose so many infantries. So that's the tactics. Okay, so I wanted to mix these kind of things. So what did we get from chess? Okay, the units, for example, we have six types of units, like in chess. We have infantry, that's the pawns. We have cavalry, that's the knight in chess. We have the archers, that will be the bishop, long range and attack. We have the rook, that's the hero units, these big units, that's kind of infantry killers. And then we have king and queen. The difference is that in your missions, you can have king, you can have queen, or you can have both. If you lose all of them, so if you have two, you can lose one of them, anyone, and that's going to work, no problem. But if you lose all your leaders, you're going to lose the battle. Okay? Like in chess. You're going to see like in chess, they are very strong units. The king is a very strong unit in chess, and the queen is even stronger. Is the most the strongest unit in chess, the strongest. But here they have different uses. We have one is melee unit, so it's going to go ahead, get all the damage. It's going to big attacks in melee. It's going to make a lot of damage, but you have to use it and protect it. Protect him. So it's kind of like in chess. In chess, you have these strong units, but they need support. You can't leave your chess alone, your king alone in the corner of the board because he's going to get mate. So here's the same. You have the king, it's a very strong unit, but you need to support with archers from behind, with cavalry in the flank, with infantry probably if he's going to encounter a lot of units in the battlefield. So you need to combine this long-term plan, short-term plans, tactics, and what to do with each one of the units. So that's what we got from chess, mainly to explain it easily.
Well, that's all. I mean, it's amazing actually to think how deep it goes, but totally that kind of like it's extrapolating almost from a lot of different aspects of chess. That's so cool. I also love, I didn't realize it's kind of obvious now you say it about how it correlates quite directly from unit type to the types you get in chess. And growing up, our family version of chess was a Star Trek Next Generation board with Picard as the king. So now I really hope that we get a toy tactics version of chess again in real life with real models. That'd be so cool.
I wanted to make a chess with that, with those figures, but yeah,
that'd be amazing. Oh, I'm almost getting into 3D printing, and maybe my first thing is to try make.
There is in fact a chess. If you look for, I think it was called wobbly chess, you will find this a chess with roly-poly pieces and concave squares, so that you can move the board around and the pieces are going to wobble around.
That's awesome. Oh,
I would love to do the same with my units.
Oh, totally. Oh, I hope so. That's such a cool idea. I love that. And then that actually brings us to our last question. It feels like we've got here so quickly, but one thing I really enjoy about Toy Tactics again is actually, yeah, I don't know if I fully mentioned it, but it's basically like, so Total War games and things like this, as I say, I'm a huge fan of them. But the thing is, you're not sitting down and playing Total War for 10 minutes. You're sitting down and playing it for quite a long time to really get into it. And it's not a simple game. And I'm also the sort of person who likes to play games in the middle of doing things. You know, maybe I'm in the middle of cooking and you want to sit down and play 10 minutes or something. And my girlfriend is very tired of me burning the dinner recently. I'm getting too distracted by things. And I love that Toy Tactics lets you jump in for, as we say, 5-10 minutes. And then looking into it, I really love the sound of the different modes that you're adding, like the challenges and mercenaries modes. So I guess as our last question, could we get a little bit of detail about what's going to be in that mercenaries mode, and then I guess the full what does the challenge mode encompass fully?
Yeah, we are old, so we have been developing games for right now 12 years. Yeah, no. What year is this? Okay. 17 years right now developing games. Okay, so that's a lot of time. So it happens to us that you don't have, I don't know, 5 hours straight to play a game. So we try to split the gameplay into small battles that you can play anytime. And as the game is easy to learn, you're not going to forget how to play, because sometimes I leave a game for, I don't know, half a year, and when I get back, I don't remember how to play. And this was how was the bow, how I use the spell. I don't know how to use anything, so I have to relearn again from the beginning. So this game is so easy that you're not going to forget how to play, how to use it. So it's very easy to get into. It's very easy to play anytime. And the idea is that the battles are going to last for 5-10 minutes, and so you can play in just a very small chunks of time you have. You can play anytime. So it was one of our ideas from the beginning, to create these very small battles to play with, so that you can play the full campaign. That's going to be, right now we have like 15 hours of gameplay.
Amazing.
So it's a long game, so you can play for a long time. But yeah, I've seen the streamers play. You play the first 8 missions from the Roman, then you unlock the medieval campaign, and then you can play the first 2-3 missions from the medieval campaign. So you're going to play, if you love the game, you're going to play 2 hours straight without without knowing it. You're going to forget about everything, just moving around your units, and that's the main game. But the main game, as we're trying to make a game that appeals everyone. So we know, we hope that hardcore game is going to find a lot of value in the game, because you can control units in a very different way. You can use tactics and strategy that probably you have never seen before. So we want to empower anyone to try different things and that they have never tried. But we want casual players to be able to enter this RTS game genre that probably haven't tried before and enjoy the game. Okay, maybe not completing every secondary objective and maybe playing in a very easy way, just going for the main objectives and moving around easily. So we want to support that too. But we think that the game is very deep. We think that you can use strategies that probably you haven't seen before in any other game. And probably there are concepts that you haven't tried before or you have never seen before. We use your master in our game is Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War. And that's because we wanted to use it to teach you a strategy. Okay, so we want you to learn a strategy in the way while you play, and learn deep concepts that maybe you haven't ever thought about. For example, we are creating these additional modes to show that. For example, we have the puzzle modes, these challenges we have. And the idea with the challenges is to go for the hardcore gamer and give them challenges that they are not going to be able to beat unless they understand how to do it. Okay, for example, a very easy example. You have a formation of 40 units, for example, in the center of the map, and there are two groups attacking you from the flanks, and there are 25 and 25. If they get to you, there are 50 units, and they're going to destroy your 40 units. Okay, that's easy to understand. Okay, try, play, choose any formation you want. You're going to lose. You're going to be destroyed because you have less units than the enemy. So, what do you need to do? What would you do?
What would I do? Well, with a total war mind, I would advance on one of them, and because if the other one's got to catch me up, I'd like taking out reinforcements early. I would go
Right?
first. Yeah.
Right, you have an advantage because you are more units if you face one of the formations before. So you attack one of them, destroy them, and then you are big enough to face the other formation. So that's called force concentration. Okay, so you use your superiority in number to attack one of them at one point. If you're surrounded by a lot of units, it's the same idea. You're surrounded, you attack one flank and destroy the rest. Okay, instead of waiting for everyone to attack you at the center and destroy you because you are in disadvantage. And for that, there are a lot of tactics, but there are a lot of theory too. I'm going just to name it the Lanchester's law. That's going to tell you that if you are in disadvantage, you have less units. It's not kind of you have 10 against 20. You have 10 against 10. You're going to be an even battle, and there's going to survive maybe one, maybe two, and it's going to be very, very even. But if you have 10 against 20, it's not like you're going to, with your 10, kill another 10, and 10 are going to stay. That's not going to happen because 20 are going to attack you, and maybe, 18 or 16 of these 20 are going to survive and destroy you. So that's the Lanchester's law. So you need to understand that a big advantage in number is going to crush the enemy. It's not going to only kill them. It's going to destroy them completely. So that's something we want to teach you in the specialized modes. In this kind of challenge mode, is going to be much more hardcore. Okay, you want to go for the real tactics and understand what's behind the game and how deep we are going with the strategy and tactics and physics and all these things together, formation shapes. Because, for example, if you want to attack a group, if the group is very compact, maybe you want to surround it to make a lot of damage per second. So all your units are attacking at the same time, and maybe some of their units are not going to be able to attack because they are behind other units. And maybe you are making much more damage by second than the enemy. So that's another way to use formations in a useful way. Okay, so we want to go into this. Okay, yeah, this is the game. You're going to have a lot of fun. But if you want to go for the deeper tactics and how to not only to win the battles, but to destroy your enemy and keep as many units as possible alive, you need to go deeper and use these specific formations, specific tactics, use the archers in the proper way, use the hero units in the proper way because they are going to destroy infantry, but you have to use them properly, not just sending them around. And that's everything. If you're facing a big unit like a hero, you need to spend, they have this kind of a charge attack at the beginning, and the charge attack is going to make a lot of damage to your infantry. So you need to trigger that attack first and then attack with all your units. So maybe you need to send a small unit forward, and he's going to trigger the big attack, and then you can attack with the rest of your units. So these kind of tactics that are going to be much more specific, it's something we're going to show in the puzzle mode, in this challenge modes. So we have 3 different modes. We have the sandbox mode. That's going to be do anything you want. Put any kind of units you want. You can place 100 Tyrannosaurs against, catapults or Watsas or, with witches or kings or anything. So you can play with the units in any way you want, and you can combine units from different armies and everything. So you can use anything you want in any way you want, and you will have infinite spells too. So do everything you want. That's going to be the sandbox mode. The puzzles is this. I told you, it's just you have this situation, you have to solve it. It's going to be a 1-minute puzzle. So
cool.
It's very fast. So you win or lose, and that's all. And the mercenaries mode is going to be like the puzzle mode, but you can buy the units you want. It's kind of a tax, kind of totally agree with Battle Simulator. You buy your units, and that's why it's called mercenaries. You buy the units, and then you control the units to beat the level.
Very cool. Oh, they all sound super fun. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize that was what was going to be in there. That sounds super cool. I love that as well. It's actually coming up on some other interviews we're going to be doing over the next month is the idea of teaching people things like without them knowing it in games, because not like edutainment games or whatever it used to be called when it was very much like trying to cram a textbook into a video game format. But like actually teaching people about things about from the Art of War, because the Art of War sounds like it's going to be this really complex book, and of course his thoughts are incredibly complex. But it's actually very easy to understand if you can visualize a battlefield, and the way he puts it, obviously translated into English for me, but it's very, very simple. And being able to understand that through a game, though, is such a cool idea, and then it informs every other part of the game. Oh, I love that. That sounds amazing. I'm so excited.
You solve a puzzle in no time because you're already a player. You're already a gamer.
I hope so.
You know how to do that. But if you know nothing and you try and you see you have 40 units and you're attacked by 50 and you die the first time, you're going to say, okay, there is a solution to this and I don't know how. So you need to make that out. And I think that's going to be we're not going to give you a theoretical lesson of how physics work, how battles work, and everything. I'm not going to tell you the Lanchester's law. I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm going to just put you a problem and say, okay, there is a solution to this. Find it. Totally. And in the process, you are going to learn something about the strategy. That's our approach.
That's awesome. I think, again, just goes into the intuitiveness of the whole game, how easy it is to pick up, get into, and understand. Applies even using that how easy you've done all that to then teach even further and like inform. And as you say, it may not be explicit, but you're kind of learning without realizing you're figuring out how these things work. Amazing. That's super cool. Thank you so much for the interview, Antonio. It's been
Thank you so much.
Fantastic speaking to you. And anyone listening, go check out Toy Tactics on Steam. It's in early access. It's recently had the Pirates update, which is full of good stuff and super cool. It's definitely go buy it, leave a review. It's well worth it, especially if you're into any kind of strategy game. Couldn't recommend it more.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind words, and thanks for playing.
Definitely. No, and thank you for making it. Honestly, it's one of these funny things where we live in a capitalist society and blah, blah, blah money. But honestly, it's with indie games especially, it's like, thank you for making this. As I was saying, I think maybe it's over the top, but I don't think so. I think this may change how a lot of these bigger strategy classics look at their systems, and I really hope it does, and I hope that they learn a lot from it, and that you get a commission back for when Total War adds your information.
If we have an impact, that's more than enough. Thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you. And that was our interview with Antonio Iglesias. A huge thank you to Antonio for joining us, and thank you for tuning into the episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. I'm sure you'll be tired of hearing me say it, but I really think Toy Tactics is amazing and everybody should check it out. It's super fun, it's really easy to get into, and there's a lot of depth, very, very eminently, from even just playing a few levels. You'll really notice, oh, I can see where this goes. Super, super cool. I'm so excited to see all the rest they do with the early access, and I hope everybody listening gets a chance to try it out. You can find a link to the Steam page in the description, as well as a link to our Spotify, where you can check out all the previous and mainly non-video episodes. I hope you do, I hope you enjoy them, and I really hope you check out Toy Tactics. A huge thank you again to Antonio for joining us, and I hope you join us again for the next episode of Indieviews.